Have you ever thought that in the heart of the lush forests of China, there live tribes that have their own rules? Tribes that have never surrendered to modern civilization and are still powerful and dangerous warriors in the heart of nature. In this video, we go to the untold stories of these tribes. Stories you may never have heard. So if you are also interested in mysterious adventures and unknown facts, join us now and we will take you to the world of unknown Chinese warriors until the end of this video. The history of China's dangerous tribes goes back thousands of years, when various tribes lived in the mountainous regions, forests, and remote borders of China. These tribes, often referred to as savages or barbarians by the civilized Chinese empires, were known for their resistance to imperial control and their warlike lifestyle. Some of the most famous of these tribes included the Xianbei, Zhong, and Chu. They lived in pristine and untouched areas, far from urban civilizations, and were strongly dependent on nature. These tribes often engaged in battles with the armies of the Chinese Empire and used shrewd military tactics and the natural environment to protect their lands. Some famous tribes, Xianbei tribes. One of the most important nomadic tribes in Chinese history were the Xianbei, who lived in northern China and present-day Mongolia. They were famous for their military prowess and exceptional horsemanship. The Xianbei were often engaged in protracted wars as powerful enemies of the Han Empire. Yuezhi tribes. This tribe also lived in northwest China and on the borders of present-day India and Afghanistan. The Yuezhi are known for their numerous wars with the Huns and their cultural influence on the Silk Road route. Later, this tribe migrated to the west and founded the Kushan Empire. Nanman tribes. The Nanmans lived in southwest China and are famous for their resistance to various Chinese empires, especially the Han and Song dynasties. They lived in tropical forests and high mountains and had special fighting methods inspired by their natural environment. Features of tribes. These tribes used primitive weapons such as bows, arrows, and spears, but their most important weapon was their ability to use the natural environment to their advantage. They were well acquainted with the forests and mountains where they lived and used guerrilla warfare tactics to strike back against larger and better equipped armies. Many of them were strong warriors who were able to withstand harsh conditions due to their harsh life in the wild. Over time, most of these tribes either merged into the Chinese Empire or gradually disappeared from the historical scene. But some smaller tribes still live in remote areas of China and adhere to their traditional ways. This history shows the resilience and resistance of these tribes against larger and more powerful civilizations. Nature as a weapon for dangerous Chinese tribes has been one of the key factors of their survival and success in wars and military conflicts. These tribes, who mainly lived in the remote and pristine areas of China, such as dense forests, impassable mountains, and raging rivers, were able to skillfully use these natural environments for defense and attack. They used nature not only as a shelter, but also as a strategic tool for battle. Tactics of using nature as a weapon. Use of mountainous and difficult terrain. Chinese tribes often lived in mountainous areas that were very difficult for the large armies of the Chinese empires to access. They used the intricacies of the rugged terrain to hide, launch surprise attacks, and create ambushes for enemies. Mastering the mountain routes made the enemies to face many problems in crossing these areas and become more tactically vulnerable. Forests as shelters and battlefields. China's dense forests, with their dense vegetation and tall trees, were ideal places for ambushes and guerrilla attacks. The tribes used the forests to hide and mislead the enemy. They were well aware of the hidden paths in the forests and could move quickly from one point to another, while the enemies were stuck in these unfamiliar areas. Rivers and swamps. Chinese tribes often used rivers and swamps as natural barriers to prevent the advance of the enemy. In many cases, the tribes were aware that their enemies had difficulty crossing these areas and used this opportunity for surprise attacks. In addition, they considered water as a major factor in their survival and tactics. Some tribes used the techniques of drowning or limiting the water sources of the enemies, poisonous animals and plants. The tribes were well acquainted with the dangerous plants and animals of their regions. They used poisonous plants to make poison for bows and spears, and in some cases, they even used wild animals to scare or destroy the enemy. For example, the use of snake venom or dangerous insects was common in wars. Guerrilla techniques and night attacks. Warrior tribes used the darkness of night and morning fog in the forests as an important factor in surprise attacks. Due to their familiarity with nature and the surrounding environment, they could easily move in the dark and trap the enemy. These sudden attacks caused fear and panic in the hearts of the enemy. Historical examples. One of the clear examples of using nature as a weapon is the wars of the Nanman tribes against the Chinese armies in southwest China. Living in tropical forests and mountainous regions, the Nanman used the difficult terrain and difficult climate to their advantage, trapping or forcing Chinese armies to retreat. In general, nature for these tribes served not only as a place to live, but also as an integral part of their war and survival strategies. Their ability to use the natural environment as a tool to fight their enemies has played a key role in the history of these tribes. The daily life of the warriors of dangerous Chinese tribes was hard and full of survival challenges. They were trained from a young age to become skilled warriors. Daily training included combat skills, horsemanship, archery, and the use of rudimentary weapons such as spears. In addition to war, they were skilled in hunting animals for food and gathering medicinal plants from the wild. These warriors also took care of the family and clan and were responsible for protecting their territory. Their social life was often summarized in tribal gatherings and performing religious rituals and ceremonies. The rituals and beliefs of dangerous Chinese tribes formed an important part of their daily life and cultural identity. These tribes strongly believed in natural forces and spirits of nature, and believed that the world around them was full of spirits and supernatural powers. They saw nature not only as the source of life, but also as the abode of spirits and gods to be respected. Many of their rituals were formed around these beliefs and were performed to appease the spirits and protect the tribe. One of the common rituals among these tribes was the sacrifice ceremony. They sacrificed animals to please the gods of nature and seek protection in wars. Sacrifices usually included animals such as goats, cows, and even in rare cases, humans. These ceremonies were held on special occasions, such as the start of a major battle or the beginning of the hunting season, and were believed to call upon the spirits to support the tribe. Healing and medical rituals were also an important part of tribal beliefs. The shamans and priests of the tribe had a special role in this ceremony. They used medicinal plants and traditional methods to treat diseases and believed that diseases are the result of the anger of spirits or the entry of negative forces into people's bodies. By performing special ceremonies, such as ritual dances and special prayers, shamans tried to appease the spirits and expel negative forces from the patient's body. Rituals of transition, such as puberty ceremonies, were also common among tribes. When a young boy came of age and was ready to join the ranks of the warriors, a special ceremony was held that included severe physical and mental tests. These rituals marked his entry into the adult world and his acceptance as a warrior into the tribe. Success in these tests raises his social status in the tribe. Another belief of these tribes was a close relationship with animals. Many tribes believed that each person or family was protected by a sacred animal. This animal could be a guiding and protective spirit, and the members of the tribe respected it. Some tribes even believed that the strength and courage of their warriors came from the connection with these animals, and in war ceremonies, they used masks and symbols of sacred animals to connect with their spirits. These rituals and beliefs helped the tribes to maintain their social cohesion and rely on each other in the face of the tough challenges of life and war. Believing in the spirits and gods of nature gave them a sense of power and support, and played an important role in the daily and strategic decisions of the tribe. Do these tribes still exist? And now the big question: are these tribes still present in the world today? Is it possible that they still live secretly in some parts of China? This is the question that keeps the audience engaged. Whether China's dangerous tribes are still present in the world today is a complicated question. In general, many of these tribes, historically known as powerful and independent warriors, have either been integrated into the larger Chinese society over time or have disappeared due to geographical and political changes. However, there are still small groups of people in some remote areas of China who have maintained some form of tribal life, though not in the same way as in the distant past. Most of the tribes that were known as dangerous, especially the tribes of the north and southwest of China, changed over thousands of years through wars and interactions with the Chinese Empire. In many cases, they gradually integrated their culture and traditions with Chinese society or migrated to other areas. For example, the Xianbei and Yueqi clans, historically known as great warriors, interacted with various Chinese empires and eventually became part of the larger history of China. However, there is still the possibility of small and isolated groups living in mountainous and forested areas. These people may have remained away from modern society due to difficult access to their areas or the desire to preserve old traditions. In remote areas such as Tibet, Yunnan, and Guizhou, people still live with traditional and tribal ways. Of course, their lives today are not the same as they were in the past, and modern influences have greatly changed them. But whether these tribes live in secret and completely away from the eyes of the modern world is closer to legends than reality. In today's world, despite the advancement of technology and access to information, it is very rare that large human groups remain completely hidden from the global community. However, some of these ethnic groups in remote and difficult areas of China may still live in traditional ways, but with more limited communication and preservation of some of the old customs. So, the short answer is that remnants of these tribes may exist as small, isolated communities in some corners of China, but they are no longer known as the powerful and dangerous warriors of history, but rather as people with a traditional, old-fashioned lifestyle. They do,